In the bottom right-hand corner, we are going to start things off with the blue Protoss player representing the Shopify Rebellion. It is Harstem.
And that obviously means that in the top left side of Babylon, we're going to go ahead and take a little look at the main base of the Ukrainian veteran himself. This is Papa Cass.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what the openings are going to be. Harstem is, always been very standard, I feel like, when it comes to his PvT. He likes, for a long time, he actually enjoyed the robo-based openings where you're just very safe, you get the obs out, you get information going your way, and you just generally work forward from there. So, very excited to see what we have from him, and if that is just going to be safe and standard, and whether Cass is going to let him play into that, or if Cass is going to be a bit aggressive earlier in the game to sort of knock him down and say, no, you're not allowed to do that,
There's one thing I want to talk to you about, Wadi, and I know that you're on a different camp than I am, and that is that Cass plays a decent amount of mech against Protoss, and I know that all the pros universally agree that mech is terrible against Protoss. Twitch chat in general agrees that mech absolutely blows against Protoss. I have to admit that I'm one of the very few Protoss nerds out there that actually thinks mech is kind of intimidating. And it doesn't mean that I think it's good or obviously superior to Bio, because we all know it's not. That's obvious. But Cass is actually pretty good with mech. Now, there is a chance that he just does that against me because he knows he's going to bop me in any way that he wants. But I've also seen him do it against some other Protosses. And I wouldn't be super shocked if he plays mech in one out of these 2 or 3 games.
Okay, I'm down then. I'm down for that prediction. That's a fun one. I feel like Cass comes into this with not quite nothing to lose, but I definitely feel like first round or so, Harstem, I feel like he goes in saying, you know what, I can try some crazy things, and, with the right sort of things, maybe he can pick out a victory. It's definitely in the realm of possibility as a CC goes down the low ground, it's just a factory. Everything's very normal for now, not super aggressive, not factory before expansions or anything like that. And then on Harstem's side, we just see, well, a Stargate. He's going to open very safely here. Just getting that Stargate up and getting himself set for this, well, just early kind of defensive game.
Harstem has an interesting history in the Europe regionals, right? Because a couple of times we had very high hopes for the captain and it didn't quite work out, but then he did have that one magical run where he was in the playoffs, and in that first round he had that epic 3-2 victory over Gabe. I think the final game was on Glittering Ashes back then. That is obviously the one run that really stays with us, and I'm sure that Harstem still thinks about that from time to time again. And that kind of stuff is just important, right? If you're a pro player. Sure, Harstem is a content creator, he has a great YouTube channel, streams a lot, but he's still a very competitive individual too. And he has shown us that if the stars align, he is capable of making a pretty epic run in the Europe region.
I always feel like if I think of Harstem in these regionals, I think, oh man, is he going to play against Mana and get knocked out again in the final match? It happened 4 seasons in a row where Mana Harstem was the deciding matchup. It was always Group A as well. I feel like they were always in the first group. It was kind of ridiculous how many times that happened. It was it's same as when I think of TLO, I always think TLO Neep. They always play in every tournament in those DreamHacks of old as well.
Yeah, and I'll never forget that at one point everyone was like, oh, it's TLO Neep again. And then Dr. Dario, even though he's always sweet and always nice and respectful, and he's like, hey, I understand that some of you guys think this is funny, but this is really not that funny to me, man. I'm really doing my best, and I just keep on running into one of the very best foreigners every single tournament, and it's literally preventing me from making deep runs. It's not that funny, guys.
Yeah, that was a sad but still kind of amusing moment. I remember that, man. As Phoenix does take some shots off the Marines. He was kind of dancing around with the Widowmine to the top, and then Marines on the bottom. Didn't take any shots, but just there did take a bit of a beating, and this medevac has slipped away down the left-hand side. So if your Phoenix aren't at home, you might be in trouble, but it looks as though he's going to start pulling them back, Harstem, knowing he'll need these Phoenix to defend this timing. And of course, he has no way of knowing that there's a medevac down the left side, so he just has to prepare in case there is, which in this case, obviously, there is.
So what I think is going to happen here, Wadi, is that I don't think Cass sends it in until he sees the Phoenixes show up in the main base one more time, right? It's almost silly, because he knows he's going up against Phoenix. He knows that the Phoenixes are not flying around his main base right now. So Cass should really not send it in. Now he's sending it awfully close to the main base of the captain. Does the captain see that? They are so close, he doesn't see it. That's crazy. But look, I want to say, look at the production tab. We had a tank and a liberator. Those are not units as the Marines are roaming the center of the map. I want to say those are not units that you normally just build if you want to do nothing, but maybe Cass wants to do nothing, as he did drop a third CC. Liberators on the top right side of the map. Withermine drop is indeed waiting at the bottom side of the map. Like, this is kind of uncomfortable if you're Harstem, because you know that you need to do something with your Phoenix, but you also know that you need to make sure you don't take any economic damage at home. It's a pretty interesting start here to this game on Babylon.
Yeah, this is a very unique one, man. He's so close to that Widowmine drop, which would have simplified everything for the few moments afterward, but yeah, obviously didn't quite manage to catch it, and that's a little bit of a shame. Oh, man, this is gonna be a little bit scary, man. I'm a little bit worried that these drops are gonna start doing a lot of damage here. Here we go, Liberator sieges up on the natural. Phoenix and a couple Stalkers deal with that quickly. Let's see what the Widowmine drop does in the main base then at the same time.
Ooh.
As the Widowmines are gonna go big. 1, 2, and the third one didn't burrow. Okay, well, ruins my casting, but all good. There we go, and 3 in the end.
Ow. 16, mate, as the Marines are going to protect these tanks. Tanks do get a couple of shots off on the Adepts and the Immortal. Cass can actually go home, even though that maybe wasn't the original plan. Now one tank is taking the wrong way home, but that was an absolutely amazing start for the Ukrainian veteran, as Harstem is going to drop the Twilight Council, but 16 probes going down against 3 Widowmines, and Cass is playing triple orbital. What a godly start for our Ukrainian.
Yeah, that was actually really, really good. It doesn't honestly get much better than that as our Phoenix. Need to be careful. And honestly, this push across the map from Harstem, I don't feel has that much potency to it. There's a bunch of tanks. They should be fine to zone out the Colossus, and I just don't see what Harstem can do here. I mean, threaten, be a bit scary on the map, like, aha, I'm still good, but the reality of the situation is he actually needs to push in and do damage, and I just don't see that actually being the resolution of this conflict.
Up sending the Phoenixes into the main base, getting a few SCVs there, a very decent amount of SCVs, avoids the missile turret as well. Now there are 2 Vikings. Vikings are a whole lot better in this day and age against Phoenix, but obviously not in these numbers, as 1 Viking does fall, 1 Phoenix finally falls. Harstem needs to be careful that he doesn't lose all the Phoenix though, because if you want to play Phoenix Colossus, it obviously takes such a long time before you have a whole bunch of Blinky boys out on the map, and he's even going to go for charge before Blink. So that means that these Phoenix are honestly very important in keeping the Colossus safe.
Yep, they are the Colossus' lifeline. So without those, the Colossi don't do much. They die too quickly. There's only 3 of them, so it's not even that high a number. And we're going to take some more shots on 1. It's starting to feel a little bit scary, honestly, as Phoenix back away back through the top side of the map. And you know, Stim Combat +1, all those upgrades finishing up in a few moments from Cass. We'll see what he does. He starts to move on the map again, and I do not blame him. He's still going to be reveling in the fact he did so much damage early on in this game. He has a lot of potential still now. As he gets to the other side, Harstem's going to loop around him, and he's just going to instantly counterattack because he doesn't want to fight the army straight up.
Yeah, now I really wonder what Cass is going to do with his army. Tanks are not great units when it comes to running to the other side of the map and then going home again. He's still going to do it. Harstem probably very surprised that Cass wasn't there. And he's like, well, I don't hate it. I saw Jumi getting on top of the production of Spirit. I can try to do the same thing. Now Cass is going to siege up the tanks, and Harstem will be forced to recall. That one Marauder was getting a decent amount of shots off on the Colossus. That was not a bad little poke for Harstem, and obviously he did force Cass to turn around. But also, I don't think quite the potential that truly was there for the captain, since that SCV line was completely exposed, right? All those SCVs were kind of by themselves. A single tank was obviously never going to protect them. I think maybe Harstem could have killed a few more workers there.
Absolutely expected him to get at least the mineral line. I mean, they all pulled away into a corner they couldn't get out of as well, so if he took a step or 2 further forward, the Colossi probably would have just cleaned up a bunch. That disruptor shot goes big into the center of those tanks. That's a huge moment, as now we're going to get rid of 2 tanks straight away with the Colossus fire. What a start. I mean, the disruptor doesn't kill tanks, but bringing them low like that, you can see how the Colossi clean them up, and we're cutting through what is currently the biggest problem for Harstem. The tank count is the issue. Zealots on the counter-attack at the same time, and they're going to come straight in and start getting themselves some SCV kills.
I think this is really where we can see that Harstem is the higher ranked player between these two, and is the reason why we called him the favorite. Because from a very awkward spot where he took a lot of economic damage and his opening didn't quite work out, he is just slowly but steady finding little W after little W, finding Cass out of position, landing a Nova when Cass is not paying attention. And as awesome as that was to land a Nova on those tanks and a couple of the bio units, I almost think that if you go for all Marines there, you get an absolutely monstrous shot, and he could have probably just A-moved the remaining bits of Cass's army. But still good, and Harstem is probably very confident that the longer this game goes on, the better it will be for him.
Absolutely. Knocks down an observer here as well, so just going to grab that immediately. And, well, Medevac's load up, 4 full ones, as Cass going to start dropping around and just trying to be very active on this map, trying to find a whole bunch of damage wherever possible. So works his way around the left, but the Prism's going to make its way into the natural. He actually has the main army of the Protoss also advancing, and Cass has moved out to the right side. This is not the time to be moving out. This is not going to end well for him. And Harstem feels like he's going to be in great position in every aspect of this fight.
History is kind of repeating itself. Warp Prism in the main base, warps in a bunch of Zealots. I like those Widow Mines, but the Disruptor shot is even better. Takes care of all the mines there. Now, we do have that quad drop on the other side of the map that has potential, but Cass is just losing a ridiculous amount of units at home while not getting a whole lot done. Finally, these units have unloaded, and Harstem is probably looking at it like, well, that's annoying, but I've got Zealots in the main, I've got an army in your third base. I have the feeling that I'm going to destroy stuff a whole lot quicker than you will destroy stuff. And we can also see a couple of beauty arrows on the side of Cass. Misrallied rally points there. It just feels that Harstem is getting the best of this situation.
He absolutely is. Obviously, so many SCVs going down. We all got knocking down bases, though, as the main base attack gets cleaned up. A few Phoenix left AFK, but now Harstem's army is here to make sure this is going to be the end of this damage. Cass got a little bit extra done then at the very end, but this really will be about all they wrote for now. And all said and done, Harstem comes out a lot of supply ahead, and like you said, really just showing us why he's kind of the favorite, because this was not a pretty start, as he's going to lose the Disruptors. Oh my god, the other one didn't go down. Finally gets picked just after it fired. Phoenix chasing down Vikings. Medivacs were low, loading up those units. That was a dangerous play in itself.
Yeah, if Cass would have been able to just pick up that Disruptor, maybe this would have all been a bit better for him, because he does have orbital commands for days. What he does not have is the Ghost ready to land EMPs on these Archons, and we spoke about it earlier today in that game of T-Ball. If there are no Ghosts, Archons are absolutely amazing units, especially if the Terran is Marauder heavy, and we can definitely see that Cass is quite Marauder heavy. He is waiting for these Ghosts to show up to land a couple of EMPs, but maybe they have made it. They do land one EMP as one more Nova flies forward. Good job there by Harstem, repositioning the angle of that Nova. And it just feels that this Protoss army is a little too big, too powerful for Cass to deal with. GG gets called. Harstem wins a pretty messy game one, we gotta say, right? 12 minutes and 40 seconds of action on Babylon. But this was a pretty awkward game with armies just missing each other over and over again.
They were just all over the place, right? Just Harstem kind of gets by Cass, Cass misses Harstem, and both times that happened, it absolutely benefited Harstem. And obviously unfortunate for Cass after such a strong start, but even without those misses, it felt like Cass was already slipping behind a little bit, right? And Harstem was finding good damage with the Phoenix to help get himself back in. I think you said it great in the game, just Harstem showing us why he's kind of the favorite, because if Cass doesn't immediately capitalize on what was a lot of damage, Harstem was able to get little W after little W and just slowly edge the game back in his favor, pick up that first map, and just solid gameplay after, yes, a rough start, but just, again, really good to follow up from there.
And that's obviously scary if you are Cass or if you're on Team Cass here, because it's not a guarantee that you get a start like that as a Terran player, where 3 Widow Mines can kill 16 probes. And maybe the Liberator didn't get a whole lot done, but obviously it just kept the Protoss busy. A lot of workers going down, a lot of lost mining time. And on top of that, the Phoenixes were not dealing the initial damage, where Phoenix can always get a couple of SCVs, but if you're a Terran player and you're on triple orbital, 55 SCVs, you really don't mind it if the Phoenixes fly in, they kill a couple of SCVs. You don't like it, but it's kind of like one of those things where you just shrug it off, and it's like, it's no big deal. But if the Phoenixes start picking SCVs up and you're only on 30 or 35 SCVs, that's where it's going to hurt a whole lot more. So I kind of fear the worst here for Cass heading into Game 2. I think if he was going to take a map body, Babylon A is a great map to do it as a Terran, and B, that was a dream start. And I have a hard time imagining he's going to get a start that good again.
That was it, right? That was the chance. That was meant to be the moment, and unfortunately didn't turn out to be. And like I say, that obviously becomes very, very costly. So yeah, we'll see if he can get himself off to a great start, but I feel like Harstem is just going to solidify going into this game number 2. I do not think he gives Cass the start that we just saw there. Let's see, in the top left-hand side to begin this game 2, up 1 map from the Shopify Rebellion, Harstem.
And in the bottom right side, maybe we get to see a little bit of mech here, because this is a great map for mech body, not just against the Zergies, not just in TVT, but even in TVP. I'm kind of a believer. I know I'm the only believer on the European continent, besides perhaps this man, who is no stranger to it. Hailing from Ukraine, it is Cass. I know I sound ridiculous, by the way. You don't need to make fun of me, but he's good with mech. Well, what can I say? He's a great mech player.
Roddy, I feel like you just enjoy playing against him on the ladder or something. He's like, I love it when he plays mech into my Phoenix Immortal, and I feel like I'm just seeing the glimmer in your eyes.
No, mate, I have been slaughtered by his mech play over and over again. He's like, he just trolls me. He goes for a Thor and brings a bunch of SCVs, repairs the hell out of it. And I'm like, all right, great job. Like, because when they ever get it, they go for an early Thor and Hellbats. Like, there is no worse thing to fight for a Phoenix Zealot than Hellbat Thor. Like, that's a straight up nightmare. That's just not a fight you're ever going to win, no matter how many bases you are ahead. So. It's really not a mind game here. It's not reverse psychology, but I don't know if Cass has any confidence in those kinds of builds when he goes up against a man like Harstem.
Yeah, that's the real question, right? Does he really believe it can work here against Harstem, who you would expect has a good idea of how to play against that mech? And like you say, mech in general is not good. We've seen people try it. I mean, I remember casting Gumiho Classic recently, and well, that one wasn't exactly the super pretty scenario, was it? Where we had the mech of the worst possible fight ever for Classic, and he was still ahead afterwards, so, yeah, mech man, not great.
It was the worst possible fight into the best possible fight, though. Like, I know that Classic, then the second time around, he just got a dream fight as he got right on top of all the tanks, but I also think that was a little bit sloppy, right? Those tanks were not supposed to be that exposed, but Cass is not going to do mech, so we can stop talking about it. Instead, he is going to play the strategy that I've actually never seen lose, Waddy. It is the one barracks into a fast expand into two more barrackses. The 3-Rex, fierce, it's feisty, and it has a very high win record in competitive video games.
Yeah, very high win record. 3-Rex, the most dangerous build on the ladder, and it's going to come out here for Cass to just try and, the goal is just get across, hope your opponent isn't super prepped, and dive on into that natural. Now, what Harstem wants to do is, as he gets a Stargate up, if he's going to open Phoenix, he wants to try and scout. Obviously sometimes you keep the Phoenix at home and you just kind of wait for the Widowmine drop. In this case, it's ideal if he actually sends the Phoenix out to scout. See its 3-Rex, that means he can get an Immortal off the Robo facility he will build here straight away. That is how you hold this. Make sure you have the battery on the natural in time too. That is the secret to holding on against this, because typically Phoenix aren't meant to be great against 3-Rex. But, like I say, if you do get the scout information, you can adapt the build to do everything it needs to keep you alive here.
Yeah, but it's very important for Cass not to let the adapt sneak in, because you want to hide the fact that you're playing 3-Rex for as long as possible. Harstem is dropping a very early Robo, though, so maybe he's already thinking about it, and he will feel that he's going to need a quick Robo Bay. Robo is in the natural, worth mentioning. Could be dangerous, right? The first time the bio units make it to the other side of the map, if they gun down that pylon before Colossus is out, it can straight up win the game. I'm quite interested to see how this one is going to play out. Harstem will scout it right now with the Phoenix. And now I truly wonder, does he have the confidence to even drop a third Nexus? Or is it just quick as possible, Robo Bay into safety battery, and we stay on 2 bases a little bit longer and take it from there? And that seems to be the approach for the captain.
I think 3 base is a little bit crazy, right? Because getting a 3rd base up and also having the battery to defend the 3rd location and so on is just unlikely. We see battery and an extra pylon powering on the low ground. Starts up the Immortal, which obviously adds to this defense, a good solid unit to help you out early game. I love this little move. The Marines go out the left-hand side, so he mined out the gold patches to go across the map. But Harstem knows, right? He sees no Marines here. He realizes the move out is probably happening. I'm sure he can put it together, because again, he knows it's a 3-Rex, so he already had the scout in the main. If this hadn't been a scout in the main, this would have been a beautiful move out of Cass.
Call me crazy, but I still kind of fear for Harstem here, man. That is a lot of Marines. That's a lot of guy with a gun. And 2 Adepts, an Immortal, and a Sentry really don't have crazy DPS. Now we have a Zealot being warped in that also doesn't have crazy DPS. It really is all about this Colossus. And it's all about the battery. Here come the Marines. They stim forward. They want the Sentry. They go for the Sentry. Now they go for the battery. And these Protoss units are going to fall very quickly. Harstem is forced to pull the probes. 3-Rex, Waddy. 3-Rex.
3-Rex, you've never seen it lose, Roddy, and well, we'll see if it loses here in the end, but 15 probes already down suggests that probably not. Marines get dropped off, and they are going to just go for the last couple of workers that they can find. 20 workers died. You were right, that Colossus was not here, and I think the Sentry going down before he got a cast-off was big, because can you imagine a force field even just buying a bit of time? This battery lives a little bit longer. This was a few little things that maybe could have done it for Harstem, but I feel like that Sentry kind of had the power, and it got nuked down immediately.
Yep, no, even just a force field to make it more awkward for the Marines to get in range with that battery, because then they are going to take hits of like a slow zealot, right? That normally wouldn't get any hits off. I gotta say, I absolutely loved how decisive Cass was, though, because how often don't we see turn players like, yes, no, Immortal Sentry, no, probably shouldn't. He just said, F it, I'm going for it, I'm sending it. And Overcharge is still good, but this amount of Marines can absolutely gun down a unit like an Immortal, even if it's being healed up by the battery. And Cass puts himself in an even better spot than Babylon. So we kind of look silly when we say there is no guarantee he's going to get a start as good as he did on Babylon. He said, no, that one was good, but I'm going to put myself in an even better spot. And just take notes and learn, you nerds. And, well, I am learning, Waddy.
You're learning, yeah? You're going to execute the 3-Rex like no other?
I mean, I obviously was already a
master
believer in the
of
3-Rex.
Yeah.
I've been on the wrong end of going up against the 3-Rex a couple of times. You know what was funny as well is that Harstem had 2 Phoenixes floating in his own natural. Then he sent it to the other side of the map, but I really thought he saw that SCV. And that SCV was carrying gold minerals, right? So I kind of thought that would be like maybe a little heads up that Kaz has mined out these backdoor minerals and that he was going for a rather cheeky maneuver. Imagine if he would have pulled some SCVs there, by the way, with the 3-Rex. Then I think it's just game over.
Oh yeah, game ends. Absolutely. Because if the SCVs keep a few of the Marines alive a bit longer, the Marines just continue to steamroll through everything, so... And I don't think we would have really seen the Colossus coming into play anytime soon enough to really fix that either, so... That would have been really quite brutal as Harstem gets his 3rd base up. Actually mines out the gold minerals to go to the top 3rd, which isn't super common for a Protoss. But maybe just feels like this is a bit set back and a bit safer, considering the fact he is now playing from behind. This army of Cass starting to move onto the map and will, of course, be looking for some big fights to make things work in his favor here.
Yeah, now 3 Colossus, especially near a battery, could be maybe good enough for Harstem to stabilize and drag this game on a little while longer as he has dropped the 2nd target as well. He's going to get a couple of sweet shots off immediately, drops a whole set of force fields too. Now Colossus are not fantastic against Marauders, but they are very good at Marines, and honestly, that actually went pretty damn good for Harstem.
Yeah, that was a pretty decent trade, just Colossi getting a hammer away on this force, and you know that keeps Harstem maybe somewhat in this and somewhat able to keep competing. I mean, I do worry a little bit for Cass just because that last game did see mega damage early and Harstem slowly drew himself back into it, and not saying we're on our way to that happening again, but you've got to keep the possibility in mind the longer that Cass goes without closing it out, that maybe Harstem can start to find some of those little victories and start to work that into a bigger factor as the game goes on.
But what Cass does already have, though, is double starport, and I love the fact that he's even dropping a 4th command center on location. He's like, all right, Harstem, if you're going to be the turtle Protoss that's trying to go into Skytos and a bunch of robo units, or play Protoss mech, as I like to call it, because we barely have any gateways, right? There are 2 gateways, but no Twilight Council. We're not going to get any upgrades for those units soon. Cass knows that he can just expand on location, because Harstem's army is just too squishy to ever move out, right? If Marauders surround it, it's a zoom slush immediately, it's all over. So Harstem is gonna turtle, and Cass knows that he can get away with expanding on location. And one thing that I'm very interested in is this future fight between the Phoenixes of Harstem and the crazy amount of Vikings of Cass. Because a while ago we had a patch, and they wrote something about the Viking, and when I read it, I was like, okay, I don't even know what that means. You know, damage point reduced from 0.12 to 0.004 as a Nova flies forward. That's going to get a pretty good connection there, as battery overcharge has been used as well. But Phoenixes are just so much worse against Vikings in this day and age than they used to be. But obviously, if they're powered up by batteries and there are Novas flying forward, it can go a whole lot better. And this was another good fight for Harstem.
That was another good fight for him. That first Disruptor really setting the tone for what was to come. And again, just see Harstem backing it up. He hasn't lost any of his tech units since that early Immortal and so on. So, you know, a couple of Phoenix maybe, but I'm talking about the Colossi, the Disruptors. They get to stay alive, and if they are staying alive throughout these fights, well, that's awesome. And look at this, an extra Stargate, a Fleet Beacon as well. He's continued to tech up and just play a slow defensive game, and he's just going to hope Cass keeps on attacking into him. He takes good trades defensively, and eventually can end up on a very powerful army to then make one big push across the map.
Yep, the only good news there for Cass and the only saving grace is that I would say he didn't lose too many Vikings there, because it's very hard as a Terran to actually catch up if one time you lose all your Vikings and the Protoss gets out of that fight with like 7 or 8 Phoenix. That didn't quite happen. 2 Phoenix went down, 2 Vikings went down. Disruptor on the right side, Cass sees it. This time around he does click on the correct one. I gotta say the Viking positioning a little bit sloppy there though, but with an EMP landing, Vikings are gonna have a much better time against these Phoenixes. And sure, a lot of Vikings went down, but even more Phoenixes fell, and we cannot forget that Cass is still the player with the superior economy.
Yes, he is. 85 SCVs pumping away right now. More Phoenix on the way up. The Viking count is getting a little low, though. Only 5 out on the front lines here. This Observer going to watch this army. Ghosts out of energy, so no EMPs currently available. We're going to dive in this direction, but again, that Observer gives you the vision of that's the Disruptor shot's preemptive, and does just clip the edge of the Force already.
Another overcharge is going to keep that Colossus safe. Few more Vikings go down. Previously, Harstem lost 8 Phoenix and Cass lost 7 Vikings. Now it's 8 versus 8. For me, that's honestly the most important battle here. The battle in the skies. Will Harstem be able to win a fight? And obviously, with any Impulse Crystals, Phoenixes get a whole lot better. That extra bit of range really does help out. But the problem is that the Vikings get a whole lot better if they have the Ghost support, because EMPs just hit hard. Phoenixes in general have a lot of shields. And Harstem now actually queues up the first carrier, which kind of just continues down the trend of the battle in the skies is a very, very important one here.
Absolutely. As the Phoenix actually are going to jump off away from the main army, they're going to go across the map, and if they can find some, units reinforcing or just on their own, there's going to be some good kills they can get here. They're going to grab themselves a medevac too. Now going to turn them back, realizing, hey, the main army ain't back here. Let's get home in case we're needed. There's a little drop in the upper right-hand side. That's going to get some damage done. A little EMP going down as well. Also on the left side, though, again, the Colossi to 5. But this time, the Vikings are working through the Colossi. This is the missing Phoenix, which are dealing on the right side. The Colossi do start to drop, and Harstem losing some of his splash damage finally.
Yep, also there is a Widow Mine there behind the mineral line. I don't know if Harstem saw that, but that mine could fire again. And if Harstem loses this base, there's a good chance he's going to send a crazy amount of probes to that third base, and he will only see the Marauder there. This Widow Mine has some serious potential, Waddy.
It really does. Oh, it gets splashed by the Marauder! No, Marauder dying. The worst thing I could have ever done.
Traitor Marauder, but obviously still a good sequence of events there. Poor Papa Cass, who's still looking pretty at 85 SCVs. I mean, we joke. You remember that thing where everybody had to tweet at Cass and then you would be blessed with good macro? Look at this, man. He's expanding all over the place. The entire bottom side of the map is consumed by our Ukrainian Terran player, taking more and more bases, and he's going to produce a silly amount of Vikings at a time.
Yes, he is. And Vikings, like you said before, the battle in the skies. The important one is Phoenix will find at least a few SCVs here, finally going to be able to slow down some of that economy. But with this amount of bases, those SCVs also just rebuild very quickly. And this is a very one-off attack where, you get to this base before turrets are up. Next time turrets will be here, Phoenix will not have as much freedom to just jump onto that mineral line and to nuke down a bunch of workers.
Yep, +2 ship weapons on the way as well. +2 armor is about to finish up for the Marauders and the Ghosts. Still can't go without the Traitor Marauder, by the way. That's somehow let that Widow Mine die. But Cass is very eager to just keep on fighting. He's got a lot of Marines there as well. Actually, he shot at those cooling towers there for a split second. That was a little bit sloppy. But the Marine positioning this time around is good. Marauders go forward. They want to get the Disruptors, and they get some of them. The Colossus are melting. I gotta say, Harstem took another decent fight, but he's kind of running out of Interceptors now. And without the Interceptors, the rest of Harstem's army is just very weak.
It really is, but we're starting to rebuild a few up. He's losing probes, he's starting to lose this base, but if these medevacs get hunted down as well, we could lose absolutely everything here from Cass on the tail end, and that could be extremely expensive. 2 medevacs, low HP, left over, now only 1, and we do get some reinforcements here. This is the closest the overall supplies have been in a long time, as that fight finally dissipates. Wow, I mean, just madness, the fights that we're seeing in these games, and, well, Cass, 2 more starports, the battle in the skies continue. More carriers on the way out, and I love a few Liberators, even if they're just left in kind of anti-ammo to splash through the Interceptors more quickly and really nullify the carriers, because you saw how useless that army of Harstem became the moment Interceptors were gone.
Yeah. One big problem for Harstem is that the gas mining wasn't optimal during that entire fight. The third base gases weren't quite saturated. He has fixed it now, but he was forced to, well, kind of fix it. sort of fixed it, not totally, but it was even worse before. And the problem is that without gas, Harstem cannot build a single unit that is good. So it really just comes down to the amount of assimilators that he can have up and running at any given moment. I think the captain has done a great job, and Harstem has definitely been able to get the better of Cass in a couple of the fights. The units lost resource step also displays that, but Cass losing over 4k resources more. But it's okay, right? Because if you take a look at the income graph, I mean, over the last 10 minutes, it's basically all red, and that's just not stopping anytime soon.
Yep, it is. It's even getting better and better for Cass, it feels like, because obviously he's been knocking down bases. Liberators siege up, but not really the support units to the front with them. Disruptor shots keeping the bio back. We do not get through the Liberators quickly at all. We focus on the Vikings, as the bio force really does not do too well here, and these intercepts will continue to work through this. This is a great fight for Harstem, and now, of course, chase potential is there, although I would maybe like to see these Phoenixes back up, because I feel like they're not doing too much extra. That is going to be Harstem once again, turning this army away and surviving. Resources lost is 8k in his favor, and he needs that efficiency to make up for that income difference.
And he's gonna send it now, and I don't hate it, because look at that, air weapons +3 is done. I think if Harstem is going to win this game, it's going to be right here, right now. Cass actually has an insane amount of SCVs, right? 94, which obviously means that the max out army is going to be 106. Harstem is here, and he's gonna go ahead and try to end this game, and at this point, Cass does not have the army to fight this many carriers with +3. I can't believe it, but it actually is starting to look that the captain is going to do it, Waddy.
It does indeed, as these carriers start to launch. Here comes a bunch of reinforcing libs, but the Phoenix get in front, absorbing those shots and helping to nuke them down before the interceptors become the main targets, and these carriers may just be unkillable as we continue through, and Harstem is going to sit on top of the production, on top of the bases, and he is just going to take this one down. It seems like Cass is going to try and stay in it, but it just isn't looking pretty for him. And that is going to be GG. Well played, and Harstem is going to come out as the victor of this series with a 2-0